Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. It's been a big day today. You have the new Narendra Modi Doctrine that is now for the world to see. The Prime Minister earlier today has made it absolutely clear that yes, this is an India that does believe that this is not an era of war. But then this is also not an era of terrorism. He makes that very, very clear. On your screens are multiple other notable quotes of what the Prime Minister has said. He spoke for about 22 minutes. And every word, ladies and gentlemen, every word of what he has said today is echoing not just in Pakistan, but echoing across the world. Because he also has a message for all those who believe in monkey balancing. He also is making it very clear that yes, we will talk to Pakistan, but not on Kashmir. Absolutely not on Kashmir. Let's talk on the PoK. Let's talk on terror. And he also makes it absolutely clear now that nuclear blackmail is not going to be tolerated. This is the new normal for the new India. And that is the Prime Minister speaking at the end of the day that earlier also saw that second round of briefing by the DGMO that has again put out Pakistan to dry. Why I say this? Because every time, remember, you have our forces speaking, and we'll see if we can also put out those images that were used during the DGMO briefing earlier today, where point by point, they are telling you of the PoK targets, remember, that have been hit, and you see before and after. You will notice the difference. No matter what the Western media might want to tell you, no matter what Pakistan might want to tell you, but that is a reality, that PoK has been hit hard. And PoK came begging for the ceasefire. PoK came begging for talks. But the Prime Minister has said talks and terror not going hand in hand. Talks and trade also will not happen unless you do not root out terror. And he also says that blood and water will not flow together. Let's first up get you highlights of what the Prime Minister has said in just a few minutes before I open this up with a panel of guests, and we then decipher what is the road ahead. Will Pakistan ever get the message? And what is this new Modi doctrine that the world now should be aware of?
पाकिस्तान की तरफ से जब ये कहा गया कि उसकी ओर से आगे कोई आतंकी गतिविधि और सैन्य दुस्साहस नहीं दिखाया जाएगा, तो भारत ने भी उस पर विचार किया। और मैं फिर दोहरा रहा हूं, हमने पाकिस्तान के आतंकी और सैन्य ठिकानों पर अपनी जवाबी कार्रवाई को अभी सिर्फ स्थगित किया है। आने वाले दिनों में हम पाकिस्तान के हर कदम को इस कसौटी पर मापेंगे कि वो क्या रवैया अपनाता है। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के दौरान दुनिया ने पाकिस्तान का वो घिनौना सच फिर देखा है, जब मारे गए आतंकियों को विदाई देने पाकिस्तानी सेना के बड़े बड़े अफसर उमड़ पड़े। स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड टेररिज्म का ये बहुत बड़ा सबूत है। हम भारत और अपने नागरिकों को किसी भी खतरे से बचाने के लिए लगातार निर्णायक कदम उठाते रहेंगे। साथियों, युद्ध के मैदान पर हमने हर बार पाकिस्तान को धूल चटाई है, और इस बार ऑपरेशन सिंदूर ने नया आयाम जोड़ा है। हमने रेगिस्तानों और पहाड़ों में अपनी क्षमता का शानदार प्रदर्शन किया, और साथ ही न्यू एज वॉरफेयर में भी अपनी श्रेष्ठता सिद्ध की।
And Prime Minister, has also in fact said that the ceasefire is just a pause. It is not an end. We are watching Pakistan. We are watching every action, every nefarious design of Pakistan, and the moment we believe we need to intervene, we will go all out. So the Prime Minister making it very clear, I'm just putting out the talk points again before we get in our panel of guests, that talks only on PoK and terror. That is the Prime Minister turning the tables on all those who still believe that Kashmir is an issue, because for India, Kashmir is not an issue anymore. And he also does say that nuclear blackmail will not be tolerated. Let's say good evening to Major General SVP Singh, who's a former ADG Artillery, joining us. Brahmachalani is a strategic affairs expert on the show. It's also a pleasure to have Vice Admiral Anil Kumar Chawla, who's a defense expert on the show. I do see Amitabh Tiwari, a political analyst. And we are also waiting for Veena Sikri, a noted former diplomat, to join us in just a moment. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It's a big day. We've seen a lot of action, a lot of your important conversations here also on NDTV. And today, I think it is the next chapter of India's moment and India's new normal. Brahmachalani, I want to begin by first of telling us your thoughts on what you've heard from the Prime Minister and this new Modi doctrine.
Well, it was a stirring speech, and it actually underlines the shift, both in India's strategic posture towards Pakistan, the paradigm shift, and also a pronounced shift in Modi's own thinking and policy toward Pakistan. We should not forget that Modi landed in Lahore unannounced as a peacemaker in December 2015. So in one decade, from landing in Lahore to launching Operation Sindoor, Modi has become completely transformed in terms of his approach toward Pakistan. As far as the nuclear factor is concerned, I think we should not forget that even with the Balakot airstrike or the 2016 surgical strikes, India punctured the myth that Pakistan could employ nuclear blackmail to deter Indian retribution. But I think with Operation Sindoor, we have crossed yet another psychological and tactical threshold. India has redrawn the boundaries of escalation, reinforcing that proxy warfare will no longer go unanswered. And I think India has demonstrated that credible military responses are possible below the nuclear threshold. And this challenges long-held assumptions about the risks of direct military confrontation between two nuclear-armed states. By executing a calibrated and precise operation, India has effectively pierced the perceived immunity conferred by Pakistan's nuclear deterrent. This umbrella has been used by Pakistan to sponsor cross-border terrorism with relative impunity. So in that sense, I think Operation Sindoor will go down in history as marking a new chapter in India's approach toward Pakistan. Now, the Prime Minister says that this is not a ceasefire, but a pause. But ceasefire is a pause. A ceasefire by definition is a temporary cessation of hostilities. So the fact is that once you cease military operations, it's very difficult to revive them quickly. But I think what he is saying metaphorically is that India is putting Pakistan to the test.
Yes.
And it will be watching Pakistan's steps very closely. And if Pakistan were to return to its previous behavior, then Pakistan can expect retribution from India.
Yes, I think those are important points, sir, that you've just outlined. I also do see Veena Sikri on our screens now. Ma'am, good evening and thank you for your time. And I quickly want to get in Major General SVP Singh before I get in our other guests also. Sir, what is your sense of what, possibly the impact of what the Prime Minister today has said? It's not just on Pakistan. I think it is world over. To a lot of people who believe that Kashmir is still an issue that is on the table. Because we say we are ready for conversations, but on PoK and on terror.
The Prime Minister's speech, I would like to repeat and echo what Dr. Chalani said. It was a masterful speech. each word measured, each word a message, and a message that India has arrived at the global stage. India is the leader in South Asia, and India will lead from the front through its strategic autonomy and strategic dominance in South Asia as of now. Pakistan must pick up the threads once again from the Prime Minister's speech. They failed to do so when we launched Op Sindoor, where the message was clear that it is for operation for counter-terrorism to eliminate the terror camps and centers which are there, but they did not take the message. They did not take the message that India seeks no territorial aggression. So, having then gone down on their knees during the 3 days of operations, they go to America, their DGMO comes speeding to our DGMO, and then the ceasefire being betrayed. Pakistan betrays its state of the nature of the state which it is, its DNA. And I think they have to really take a new course if they want to live together as a nation, because Pakistan now may be Pakistan for only a short while with what is happening. And strategic autonomy, yes, great, absolutely. Now, what has happened that the Prime Minister, he built up the country, built up the defense forces, the motivation of the forces are built up for this Operation Sindoor. It was at a very apex level. And it was seen how the tri-services functioned. He went planning for a multi-domain operation. It was not required because things just finished with our great work done by the Indian Air Force. And what is greater thing is that the shield of a nation on its national security is the air defense.
Yes.
And that has come out loud and absolutely great pride for India, the way our air defense has reacted and given so much confidence to the nation, to the military itself.
Absolutely.
So I would like to take forward that we have to, I will say, never believe Pakistan. Their DNA is such, they will speak anything, they will come to the table, but they will do another thing. So if there is no firing right now, no bullets to be exchanged, our non-kinetic measures should be totally active. Our air corridors should be protected. Our maritime lanes in the Arabian Sea should be dominated. And of course, our land borders, we have been alert. This time round, if he does anything around the LOC, the so-called LOC, which is gone now, in the Kashmir side, then the artillery which has been pounding them,
yes,
we should now come out extensively with the Pinaka rocket launchers, with even BrahMos. 2 strikes of BrahMos will reduce them further. They were reduced to rubble by the use of BrahMos just 2 days back. So, I mean, that sort of messaging has to go along. We can no longer, we have shed the defensive mentality, and it is now the offensive spirit. It has to be both in action through our military projection of power and also the mind of the people and the governance.
And I think listening to the Prime Minister actually gives you that sense that this is a country in command. No matter what the Western media, no matter what Pakistan might be wanting to tell you, Subina Sikri and all gentlemen, with your permission, just to get our viewers up to speed with what really are the important takeaways of what the Prime Minister has today said, because it's been a big day. So let's bring up details of at least these 10 points that all of you must know, because these are highlights of how you will see that entire push and that entire movement towards our fight against terror. The Prime Minister says ceasefire is only a pause, not the end. I think this is the unequivocal message that should go out today to the rogue state Pakistan, that any moment that you attempt a misadventure, we are there, we are responding. Let's bring up the second big takeaway as far as what the Prime Minister has said. This is a new normal for a new country, a new India, where he says that Operation Sindoor is going to be the way we will respond. Because interestingly, and you must know this, that earlier India has gone into the PoK, we've gone into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, but this time we've gone into the heartland of the Punjab province in Pakistan, and that has rattled many there. Let's bring up the third important takeaway as far as the Prime Minister's address is concerned. He says we'll reply to terror on our own terms. So a clear message, not just to Pakistan, that has been begging for conversations and a lot of other things, but a lot of other people, a lot of PoK allies who wanted India to talk. They wanted us to dial down tensions, to sit on the negotiation table. So that is the Prime Minister's response to that. Let's bring up the fourth important takeaway as far as the story is concerned. He says, we'll attack the roots of terror. Important distinction that he's also made between the state and the non-state actors. We will go down to eliminate the roots of terror is what Prime Minister says. The fifth important takeaway now is going to be on your screens, and he says, we will not tolerate the nuclear blackmail. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a departure of sorts, because the Prime Minister and India for the very first time is saying this as it is, that no matter what, you could be a nuclear armed state, but India reserves the right to respond. We will not, actually give to any nuclear blackmail, something that India has decided to do this time around. Let's bring up our sixth important takeaway. The Prime Minister says, let's have a conversation. But like I said, only on PoK, only on terror. Nothing doing on Kashmir, because Kashmir belongs to India and it is not up for grabs. We are not talking about Kashmir. A message also to America that in a particular statement, remember, had indicated that perhaps Kashmir could be spoken of at a neutral venue. And this, again, is an issue only between India and Pakistan. This brings us to our seventh important takeaway. That's going to go up on your screens. The Prime Minister says blood cannot flow with water. The clear reference is to Indus Water Treaty that has been put in abeyance. And no matter what, Pakistan could say, because I remember Shehbaz Sharif initially has said that this was an act of war. But the Prime Minister says that nothing doing, blood will not flow with water, period. Let's bring up our eighth important big takeaway on the entire story and the Prime Minister's address, and this follows. The new red line that we have drawn, that trade and talks will also not go hand in hand. So all punitive measures that India has exercised so far will continue to remain unless and until Pakistan decides to root away terror. This brings us to our ninth takeaway again. Terror and trade, the Prime Minister again reiterating, will not go hand in hand. Like I said, there have been a lot of sanctions, and he's again reinforcing that we are not giving in to Pakistan. No matter what the world might want us to believe, that India has drawn its own lines and we are not going to go into any kind of trade yet with Pakistan because of terror. This brings us to our final 10th takeaway on the entire address by the Prime Minister. He says, road to peace also goes through power. I think this is a very powerful statement, telling you more of what is the difference when it comes to Pakistan that still wants to call itself a democracy, but you have the GHQ, Rawalpindi, the deep state taking all decision, versus an India that collectively says that we will respond to terror on our own terms. So these are just 10 important takeaways, but there is a lot more detail. As always, also on ndtv.com, you can pick up all these details. And I want to take this opportunity now to go back to our panel of guests, and I also want to thank them again for their patience. Veena Sikri, you want to respond to what you've heard so far, and what, according to you, is the biggest message that has been sent by the Prime Minister tonight?
I think the biggest message from our Prime Minister has been that not only is this the new normal, but even as of today, on the Operation Sindoor launched by the Indian Defence Forces, this is still in motion. उन्होंने कहा कि स्थगित किया गया है. He said that we are keeping this on because A, we want to avenge the death of innocent tourists and the cruel manner in which they died, and B, why we did that on 7th of May by destroying, terrorist camps, infrastructure in Muridke, Bhavalpur and other places. But still, the Pakistan army escalated and started attacking, colleges and gurdwaras and temples and mosques in India. So on May 10th, we have given the decisive response. And in response to the plea from the DGMO of Pakistan, we have agreed to a ceasefire. But if the ceasefire does not hold, and if there is a violation, as has happened on the first 2 days, but yesterday it was, we understand, very quiet, so then, of course, it will be okay. But we retain the right to continue our attack. So I think, number one, it's very clear that the Indus Water Treaty being kept in abeyance is going to continue. There's going to be no change on that. Number two, if there are talks, they can only be bilateral talks. There's no question of any mediation. And these talks will only have 2 points. One is, one is on return of PoK, and the other is how Pakistan, or whether or when they're going to stop their support for terrorist groups.
Yes.
So terrorism and trade, terrorism and talks, these cannot go together. But if they stop the support for terrorist groups, there can be talks on the position on terrorism and so on. So I think that the very important statesman-like message showing Prime Minister leadership, showing also that we have internal strength now. Play. We've shown on May 10 with those attacks. But the support of the international community also is something that India has been able to achieve in a large measure. You must notice that in the UN Security Council resolution this time that was adopted after the killing of the innocent tourists, the word disputed has not been used in the case of Jammu and Kashmir. So this is a very important development in the UN Security Council. We know that Pakistan did its best to get in that word disputed, but it was not included. So I think the world must recognize that after the 5th of August 2019, when Article 370 was abrogated, there is no longer any locus standi for any country to discuss Jammu and Kashmir. The only point for discussion is the return of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and that is something that we are prepared to talk at any time about. So I think this important message that in reality, the Security Council seems to have recognized this, which is a very, very significant success for India, because I know, having been worked in the permanent mission to the UN, that this is such an issue which Pakistan was always taking up. That this is an item on the UN agenda. We must take it up. We must take it up. We must. And now another point is that while all these decades, India was very reluctant to take up the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, the issue of terrorism in a big way to counter what Pakistan was doing. Now, again, in the new normal, we are going to take this up with every country. The issue of terrorism, the issue of Pakistan being a state sponsor of terror, putting Pakistan on the FATF blacklist, all these issues are going to be taken up consistently and strongly, and we're not going to be any more pussyfooting around when Pakistan continues its terrorist attacks on India.
Good points. And I was also wondering, how did that IMF loan also come about in the first place? I mean, shouldn't there be people and countries accountable, responsible? When you have India putting out such clear evidence in the public domain, not for the very first time. So I think Veena Sikri makes that fantastic point. Amitabh, I know you've been waiting. Just give me another few minutes, because I want to get in Vice Admiral Anil Kumar Chawla for his thoughts. Sir, do you believe anything that the Prime Minister today has said? This clear departure, this escalation on India's own terms and conditions, will this yield any results? Can Pakistan ever mend its ways?
The jury is out, will be out on that. But let me say that this is a very strong message that the Prime Minister in India has sent. So I think if you look at the hiatus between the last major terrorist outrage in Pulwama and the current one, it's 6 years. Let's hope that, the Pakistanis learn their lesson and never repeat this again. But I think we cannot put it past them. And therefore, we have to be vigilant. And therefore, the Prime Minister has rightly said that we'll be watching and waiting. I also want to point out that in today's messaging, the Prime Minister was not only very emphatic and very firm, but he was also very smart in that he also mentioned that the roots of terrorism in Pakistan have also led to attacks. The 9/11 attacks are tied to Pakistan. The London tube bombing attacks are tied to Pakistan. The Hamas attacks in Israel are tied to Pakistan. There is concrete evidence of people having participated in all these attacks or being trained. And that's why he said this is the university. The university of terrorism lies here. And therefore, he sort of brought out to the notice of the international community, if they really needed to know this, that look, this is not just India's war against terror. It is also, and he brought out, it's also Pakistan's war. He brought out that we are actually helping Pakistan, because he said if Pakistan does not get off this tiger, it's very difficult to, once they've ridden the tiger of terrorism, to get off without being consumed. But if they don't do this, the tiger or the terrorism will consume the country itself. He pointed that out in his speech. So I think it was a very comprehensive view on that. As far as the nuclear blackmail is concerned, I think this is probably the most significant part. The nuclear threshold and the nuclear threat is not only practical, but it's a large mind game as well. And I think he has played the mind game here. We have already demonstrated, as brought out by Dr. Chelani earlier, we've already demonstrated that we have crossed that several times since both states became nuclear weapon states. But this time it has been pretty emphatic. Earlier it was restricted to PoK, to the J&K area, etc., etc. Now it has the sort of self-imposed bounds that we put have been lifted, and therefore this also puts an onus on the armed forces, on the type of weaponry, on the type of tactics, and the type of strategy that we will need to adapt, which we've already been adapting. After the Kargil war, this has already happened. But I think we will need to now further adapt to this, and I think the Prime Minister has pointed to this as well. And lastly, I think I would like to mention that when he says that India will now no longer differentiate between the government sponsoring terrorism and the masterminds of terrorism,
Yes.
I think this is now a very firm acknowledgement that the Pakistani deep state, which is of course the Pakistan army, but not only them, but the Pakistani politicians and the entire elite of the country are now complicit with the terrorists. So there is no distinction. And I think this will have a lot of diplomatic, political, and financial implications for Pakistan going into the future. So
Absolutely.
I think this is a very powerful speech. It is a very defining speech, and I think a lot of things and a lot of strategies and policies are going to flow out of this, which are going to make a huge difference. And I think Pakistan should learn its lesson. You started off with that question.
Yes.
I think listening to this, they should understand that the ground has moved. It is no longer the same as it was before, and so they need to change their entire behavior and approach towards India and terrorism.
Oh, yes, but if their actions are any indication, and I think all of you, Veena ma'am and all gentlemen will agree that this is a Pakistan that is never going to learn its lesson. There clearly has to be more pressure, not just from India, but I think from world across. And that is why there was so much outrage, Amitabh, when the IMF loan was also granted. And not to forget what we just heard Vice Admiral Chawla also saying, that there is no difference now between the state and the non-state actors. And you cannot have good and bad terrorists, like the language that Pakistan was using for the longest time. But Amitabh, as a politician, I mean, I appreciate the fact that there has been a full military force that has attacked Pakistan with all its might. But all this could have been incomplete without the political will. Now, talking of politician, the Narendra Modi, Amitabh, what is your assessment of how far we have come? How important is this moment in our fight against terror?
Clearly, in his tenure, we have come or covered a long distance. One would recall after the attack, the 26/11 attack, India did not pose a very strong response to Pakistan military response. And what we have seen in the last 10 years, Uri, Balakot, and now these attacks, Operation Sindoor, is that India has clearly crossed the line in a sense, and has clearly given a very clear intention that it will not tolerate any act of terror. It has also given, in a way, a clear message to also the Western world and sections of media that Pakistan is a global terrorist hub, because some of the countries and Western media have been dilly-dallying and have not taken a very firm stance. When he is applauding the Made in India weapons which have been used to tackle the Pakistan strikes, he's also, in a way, giving a subtle message to Pakistan that they are relying on Chinese imports and supplies, which are no match against India's weaponry systems. So many messages in all, and this is clearly now he has laid out a clear policy, and he will be remembered for laying out a clear policy or template, which is likely to be followed in the future for, God forbid, any terrorist attack which happens in the future, akin to something similar to what Israel has when Hamas or Houthi responds to Israel, that if there is any terror attack on India in the future, India will hit the terror bases, and if Pakistan remains silent, like after Uri or Balakot, all is well and fine. But if it retaliates like it has this time, then the Indian armed forces will respond very strongly and will not hesitate to hit their military installations or air bases. So a template of sorts has been created, and the clear message that there is no difference between the perpetrators and the terrorists is also highlighted by the fact that we have hit around 23 targets, out of which 9 are terror bases, but I think 14 belong to military installations or air bases of Pakistan. So that's a clear message to Pakistan in that sense, and also a clear message to some of the people who were questioning whether it was correct to have this sort of a ceasefire at this moment when India clearly had an edge. So when he talks about that it is not an era of war, he's also perhaps sending a message or a signal that India at this point of time, at this cusp of its history when it is going to become the third largest economy of the world, is not beneficial to be sucked up into a war with a rogue nation. The message has been given, and if there is any further action from Pakistan, a suitable message which was given, because India has bigger goals to achieve and we cannot be compared with Pakistan.
Yes, and I also believe that a lot of people today, not just Pakistan, could be stunned by the audacity of what India has wanted to do. Because, like, we were generally discussing that apart from the PoK, apart from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, when you go into the Punjab province, when you go into the heartland of Pakistan, no one would have imagined that this is how far India could be willing to come, and they will come there. They will strike at the terror hotbeds, whether in Bahawalpur, whether in Mudrike. And the terror outfits of Jaish-e-Mohammed, of the Lashkar-e-Toiba, of the Hizbul Mujahideen. And that is why we've seen a Pakistan that actually went completely rattled. So, Veena and all gentlemen, just give me another few seconds. I want to play out the excerpt where the Prime Minister speaks about this tactic. Why we went deep inside into Pakistan, what did that entail, and why was this so important?
दुनिया ने देखा कि कैसे पाकिस्तान के ड्रोन्स, पाकिस्तान की मिसाइलें भारत के सामने तिनके की तरह बिखर गई। भारत के सशक्त एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम ने उन्हें आसमान में ही नष्ट कर दिया। पाकिस्तान की तैयारी सीमा पर वार की थी, लेकिन भारत ने पाकिस्तान के सीने पर वार कर दिया। भारत के ड्रोन्स, भारत की मिसाइलों ने सटीकता के साथ हमला किया। पाकिस्तानी वायुसेना के उन एयरबेस को नुकसान पहुंचाया, जिस पर पाकिस्तान को बहुत घमंड था। भारत ने पहले 3 दिनों में ही पाकिस्तान को इतना तबाह कर दिया जिसका उसे अंदाजा भी नहीं था। इसलिए भारत की आक्रामक कार्रवाई के बाद पाकिस्तान बचने के रास्ते खोजने लगा। पाकिस्तान दुनिया भर में तनाव कम करने के लिए गुहार लगा रहा था।
So that is the moment where the Prime Minister is not just speaking of the audacity of the attack and why India needed to escalate this, but also saying that this is Pakistan that has been running around the world to whatever little allies it has left, apart from the IMF loan, also wanting to dial down tensions. And it is a PoK DGMO that reached out to our DGMO and who said, let's have a ceasefire, let's have a discussion. And that is where the story stopped. But clearly over the last few hours, you've seen Pakistan not wanting to accept that position. We just have enough time to take second comments from all of our guests, and let's base this now on what is the road ahead, what more can be done, and how do you put Pakistan literally on the map. Brahmachalani, let's go with you first.
Not only did India strike military bases in Pakistani Punjab, it also struck military sites in Sindh, including the Sakar Air Base and an air defense system in the Karachi cantonment. So India sent a very clear message that it can strike at will. Also, the Prime Minister's speech today contained an implicit rebuke of Trump. Trump wants to mediate a Kashmir solution. In fact, Trump has equated the victim India with the perpetrator of Pakistan, saying they are both quote-unquote great nations. In other words, a terrorist state like Pakistan, in Trump's view, is a great nation. Now, in his rebuke, Modi, without naming Trump, says that the only negotiations India will have with Pakistan will focus on two issues: cross-border terrorism and the return of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir to India. Prime Minister also said in his speech that in response to India's military reprisals, Pakistan began seeking de-escalation. But that leaves a key question unanswered. If in 3 days, India inflicted so much pain on Pakistan, why did it yield to US pressure and abruptly declare a ceasefire? This military campaign could have gone on for a few more days, maybe 3 or 5 days more, to inflict heavier blows on Pakistan, to leave Pakistan humiliated in the eyes of the Pakistani people, so that the Pakistani military generals could not claim victory as they're claiming now. We could have waited 3-4 more days, just when we had the military momentum, just when our armed forces had seized the upper hand. Just then, abruptly, we declared a ceasefire.
I do know Brahmachalani has reiterated that point earlier too, and there are a lot of people who still believe that this was the moment. And the entire country, the opposition, everyone believed that this is the moment to ensure that we never ever have another Pahalgaon. Major General SVP Singh, sir, what are your thoughts?
I will hit the nail on the head. A pause is a very dangerous thing when you're dealing with Pakistan. A pause is a very dangerous thing. We must be just ready. A nation which is having a twin dagger in its back, if it does anything now, in the next day or so, a couple of days, we must be swift and rapid, prohibitive reaction from our side, kinetic. That is the way Pakistan can be kept down.
Okay, a very brief comment, but very curt. I think the gentleman has said that, we need to be really on our toes. Veena Sikri, are your thoughts any different from the two gentlemen that you've just heard, or you believe that this was the right moment for a ceasefire?
Yeah, I beg to differ with the two gentlemen who've just spoken before me. I must say that we must remember that it is Prime Minister Modi who has been advising President Putin and all others that this is not the era of war. So I think in keeping with Prime Minister's own policy that it's not the era of war, but at the same time with our absolutely unequivocal policy of opposing terror and hitting back at terror and hitting back at any escalation or any aggression on our soil, it was the right thing that we did, because we made our points on the 7th of May with the attack on the terrorist infrastructure of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba and others, and we made our point even more strongly on the 10th of May with the destruction of so much infrastructure of the Pakistan Air Force bases. So, but we are saying that we don't want war, but we want to tell you that if you hit at us, you're going to get a much worse response, which will bring you to your knees. I think Pakistan was brought to its knees, and that is why they rushed off to the US to seek intervention, as happened in 1999. In Kargil, the same thing happened when it was Nawaz Sharif at that time rushed to Washington to meet Bill Clinton. And this time too, the DGMO and others rushed to the Americans, falling at their feet and saying, oh, please save us, otherwise finished, etc., etc. Now, having done all this, we have invited this pause and telling the world and telling Pakistan, we're only going to talk to you about ending of terror, and we're only going to talk to you about return of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. That's it. For the rest, we maintain our right. The Operation Sindoor has only been put on hold. It has not been called off. So we maintain our state of preparedness. We maintain our state readiness to hit back at you at any time. And I'm sure all our very specialized experts in the defense forces are continuing with their planning, are continuing with their putting together of all their skills and ability to resist any further, infractions from the Pakistan side. So we have not given up on anything, but we have shown that we are not interested in war. We are interested in protecting our own interests, our own people, and in our own assets, and we have the ability to do so. This is the important demonstration to the world that we have the ability, we have acquired the ability to do so. We will only strengthen this ability in the weeks and months to come, standing at all times ready to resist any form of aggression. And terrorism is an act of war. This is another very important message going out from our side to Pakistan and to the rest of the world.
Oh yes, terrorism is now going to be an act of war is something that the government again has put out very, very clearly. Vice Admiral Anil Kumar Chawla, what are your thoughts, sir? I mean, there could have been more action maybe against Pakistan. Are you a votary of that school of thought?
I'm not one who second guesses policymakers because we are not policymakers. So when you look at it from the outside, it's quite evident that this entire exercise was started by India, very clearly stating at each step that this was not meant to escalate into a war. I mean, it was given in writing. It was given verbally by every spokesperson. At every stage, India has reiterated. So the clear intention that was given was that, look, this is not going to we don't want to escalate. And there was a reason for that, which we don't have time to go into. So I think, if war is a continuation of politics by other means, this was followed very clearly. The policy was laid down by the government. It was followed by the government. And I think actually, when you look at it in hindsight now, what has happened, the new policy, the Modi Doctrine, as you've called it, and as it will be called, which has been laid down, I think that's a very solid foundation to now prosecute Pakistan in a more strategic manner. And I think the Indus Water Treaty and other levers of trade and the financial levers that are going to be put into place are going to be to Pakistan's extreme detriment. So I think this is a much more smarter way of achieving what the strategic goal that is, because the weapon systems and the armed forces always there as a hammer, as has been mentioned by the Prime Minister, should Pakistan fall out of line again, and it could very well be used. But to answer your question, this was not meant to be that. It was very clearly stated. So it would have been surprising and against the government's policy if it had escalated. I think the Prime Minister and the government were very clear that, look, this is not meant to escalate. At every stage, it was mentioned in writing and in verbal and repeated by the spokesperson in every briefing. So it was quite clear. And I think now that this message has been sent, and the nuclear Rubicon has been clearly stated will not stand in the way of India prosecuting any further terrorist attacks, and a new line in the sand, as the Prime Minister says, has been drawn. I think it's a very good outcome. There will always be people. Pakistan has claimed victory even after 1971 war. So that is something that they will continue to do. That's for their internal audience, for their internal legitimacy. I don't think we should be bothered about that. I think the outcome is entirely positive and totally in our favor.
Okay, so you believe this was the right moment, and clearly it's up to the policymakers to decide where they believe that they can pause and where they believe that they need to push forward. Amita, with your permission, I just have another quick follow question with Beena Sikri, because this is something a lot of our viewers have also been asking ever since here on Newsnight. We've been covering the entire issue. Why don't we declare Pakistan a terror state? I mean, what is the process? Why is it so difficult, and why have we not done it so far?
Well, I think I agree with you on that, because I think that Pakistan is definitely a state sponsor of terror. And we have been talking about it in a big way, about Pakistan's support for the terrorist groups, encouraging them and using them against India, particularly in Jammu and Kashmir. I think that we need to get international support on this, because this is the important point. And this is why we need to take this into the international domain and get global support for declaring Pakistan as a state sponsor of terror. And this is a very consistent dialogue we must have. You have put together all the facts and figures, and I think now we have increasing amount of evidence, and this there can be no let up on this. All these decades, it was Pakistan was going around the world talking about Jammu and Kashmir, saying how it belongs to them, and getting international support for their point of view. And India, except in the last 10 years, India has been very reluctant to enter this debate, because we've always said, ever since the Shidma agreement, it can only be done bilaterally. But Pakistan was breaking this with impunity, with complete impunity, telling everybody, their point of view. This state of affairs is not going to be there anymore. And we have quite signaled that we are going to take this to the global community and continue our fight. Even in the IMF, we abstained, which was the strongest kind of vote that we did when the IMF was deciding on giving Pakistan this $1 billion. Because, IMF been bailing them out again and again.
But
you
Veena
have to have a
Sikri, I am
consistent
baffled.
message.
If after what Pakistan has done, if after all the evidence that we have in the public domain, if we still need more support, I mean, this obviously cannot be the new normal.
No,
Amitabh, I
I'm
know
not
I'm
saying-
asking you just to wait, but Brahmachalani, take about a minute, sir, to tell us more about what are your thoughts on this. Is it so difficult to declare Pakistan a terror state?
There are certain powers that have built up Pakistan as a military counterweight to India, including the United States.
Yes.
The US has a veto power in the IMF board, yet beginning with Biden administration, they helped Pakistan secure one bailout after another. Biden even modernized Pakistan's F-16 fleet, made it more lethal against India, helped Pakistan exit the FATF gray list, and now the Trump administration has helped facilitate another $2.4 billion bailout for Pakistan. The US turned a blind eye to Pakistan's acquisition of nuclear weapons because the US believed that Pak nukes could block India from gaining dominance in South Asia. Even today, Pakistan remains, quote unquote, a major non-NATO ally of the US.
Correct.
So not only does Pakistan have China as a close ally, the old establishment in Washington hasn't given up on Pakistan, and that's the reason why Trump and company are now trying to resurrect the Kashmir issue. So global community will not designate Pakistan as a sponsor of terrorism. It is for India to do it. Now, India has expelled the Pakistani air, army and naval attaches from Delhi.
Yes.
The Pakistan High Commission strength has come down to 30.
Yes.
That is twice as many as the number of personnel, diplomatic personnel in the Canadian High Commission in New Delhi. In other words, we are still not treating Pakistan in policy as a terrorist state. Coming back to the earlier discussion, the point that I was trying to make is this, that when Pakistan was begging for truce, why did we accept US mediation? That question has not been answered by anyone.
Okay, you say that question has still not been answered by anyone, but the jury is out there, Veena. I have completely run out of time, but I have to go to Amitabh quickly because we have to see how the story moves from here. Amitabh, we just know that the BJP has also announced a Tiranga Yatra, where the idea is to go to every nook and corner of the country and put out the message of the success of Operation Sindoor. Amitabh, how do you see this story moving politically?
So politically, clearly the opposition has demanded that there be a joint session of parliament. If not a joint session of parliament, I think since the BJP-led government had held an all-party meeting during the attacks and even before the attacks, trying to take into confidence all the political parties, I think an all-party meeting could happen in the next few days, wherein the government clears its position as to what sort of harm it has done to the Pakistan establishment and why did it go for a ceasefire, because these are strategic and confidential things which may not be discussed in a joint session of parliament. The BJP would of course try to take credit because today's war is not only fought on borders, it is also fought on social media. So clearly when we see that the public of Pakistan is celebrating and a loss, we have to come out and claim credit for the victory and show to the world. We have already, in a sense, in the DGMO operations, clearly before and after those slides, we have learned a lesson from Balakot in that sense. And that clearly shows the extent of damage we have made to Pakistan. So BJP would try to milk it politically. The opposition parties may not be able to oppose it. I think it is better not to oppose it in a sense.
Yes.
And the questions which they're asking, and Brahmaji is also asking as to why the ceasefire was adopted, under whose pressure. All these questions could be discussed in an all-party meeting to take all parties into confidence on the way forward.
All right, Veena Sikri and all gentlemen, I must thank you for this very, very fascinating conversation that we've had. And I hope our viewers have been able to understand at the end of it various layers within layers to this entire story. Thank you to all of you as we also make way for Newsnight's parting shot. What is very clear, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a new normal for a new India. No matter what you say, but this is the new red line. This deal, that is the ceasefire, is just a pause. It's not the end, something that the Prime Minister has said, and that is why every next move, the next move of Pakistan will be watched. Whatever Pakistan does today, we will be closely watching. Our forces are up in guard, and the talks, like the Prime Minister has said, will only and only be on terror, and PoK and Kashmir, unfortunately for Pakistan, is not on the table. Thank you so much for watching. We thank you for your time. Good night.